Okay. This is my story.
This is my story.
This is my story.
Now without the nod.
This is my story.
This is my story.
This is my story.
Yay.
This is my story.
This is my story.
This is my story. Hi, I'm Sharon Reynolds, and I usually attend the 9:15 service. Years ago, I played the piano at when we were still in the old building, and then I kept playing it when we came to the new building, and that's where some of you probably remember me from. I'm part of the personal growth ministry. I mean, I help with that, so. Well, I was working at Fairhaven's Christian Home, and one of our volunteers was Jane Scattergood, and that was the minister's wife at the time. And we were in the old building, and she said they needed a piano player at Antioch. So I said, well, I might be interested in that. So I started playing the piano, and I came and played the piano. We attended South Shores Christian at the time, but I played the piano here, and then I would go play the piano at South Shores, and ended up, we just stayed, and we loved it here. And then it got to where Dawn was going to one service. I was going to, at South Shores, I was going to Antioch, and we decided to join Antioch. So we did, and it was wonderful. As far as I'm concerned, this church is amazing. And the people here are wonderful, and they just welcomed us with open arms years and years ago, and I'm very proud of our church. We are very, I think that we're very loving, and we reach out, and we're like a beacon. If someone's looking for a church, I would always recommend this church, for sure. I was married to Don Reynolds. He, passed away a little over a year ago. And we have 3 children. We have Donnie, and he's going to be 50. And he has 2 children, Shannon, and she's at Mizzou, and Broden, who's a freshman at Mount Zion School. And then we have Jennifer, and she's a social worker for Catholic Charities. She actually works at the St. Mary's Hospital. That's where her office is. And she has 2 boys, Jacob, and he's like 24, and Joey, he's 19. Joey still lives at home, and actually, Jenny actually lives behind me. She bought the house behind me, so she's very close. And then we have Jessica, who is in 36, I believe. I forget sometimes. But anyway, she is an RN at Decatur Memorial in the emergency room, and she still lives at home. And we live in Decatur at the South Shores area. Well, I worked at Fairhaven's for 37 years to start out with. I was a CNA, which, believe me, they work very hard. But then I went to the activity department, and I ended up being the activity director. I really loved that. It was wonderful. I loved working with the elderly. I remember one time we took a group to the fairgrounds to watch the horse races. One of our little ladies, she said, well, when are we going to go place our bets? And I'm like, well, we're not going to bet. She goes, we're not? I'm like, no. But I could probably tell you hundreds of stories because it was just very rewarding. Some things were not real rewarding, but mostly just making people happy. It made me feel good. Not just me in particular, but it made you feel like you were doing something good. And it was just such simple things that, we do. And like, we'd have a cookout, and they would be so excited to have this hamburger, and it's like the things that we just sort of take for granted. It was fun to do that with them. I'm a quilter. That's one of my favorite things to do. I've made one for everyone except my son, who reminds me every day that I haven't made his quilt yet. I'm still thinking about his quilt. I've got ideas, but my favorite, I made Don. His was a fishing quilt, and it was a surprise. And he'd always say, "I wish you'd make me a quilt," and I kind of did it on the secret when he didn't know about it. And when he opened it up, it was very touching. He almost cried. But yeah. Those are some, I like to make quilts and give them away. Those are my favorite things. Well, the Bible is my favorite book. I like the old movies. Like, Sound of Music, Gone with the Wind. I did like Sleepless in Seattle and those movies like that because they probably have a happy ending. I like happy endings. I don't know how to answer that one, to be truthful. Probably be maybe a comedy. And I don't know who would play me. Well, I would like to go, sounds silly, but I'd like to go to Norway. My dad's side of the family, actually somebody did a lot of research, and that's basically where we started, in Norway. And there's even, my last name was Sharon Hadsel, that was my last name. And there's actually a Hadsel Island in Norway, and a lot of history on my dad's side there. In fact, both of my sisters, my older sisters, have been to Norway. I have never been to Norway yet, but it's something I'd like to do. Well, my kids would probably say I overthink. I overthink things, and I stew and worry about stuff, which I do. I know that I do, and it kind of aggravates me because, but I just keep thinking, especially if I'm making a quilt or something, and I just keep looking at it and thinking, oh, I don't know, this doesn't look quite right, and they're like, Mother, just let it go. But my own mother was a bit of a worrier. She, in fact, as she was getting toward the end of her life, I remember once she said, the one thing I really regret, I wished I wouldn't have worried so much. She said, but I did, but she said, so don't do that. Well, I've always thought it would be a nice job to own a quilt store. I think that would be pretty cool. I would say my parents. I grew up in a Christian home, and I was probably in church when I was just a baby. Yeah, I grew up at Wick Christian Church, and involved in the youth there, which, it was a small church, but we had a youth group, and I even taught a Sunday school class when I was in high school, I think. I had a Sunday school class, I taught that, and lots of precious people that, I was actually baptized in a farmer there. His name was Irie, and his creek. Because at the time, we didn't have a baptistry at the church, because my dad was one of the guys that helped build the church. And so I was baptized in a creek. I think I was probably about 9 or 10 years old. So I'll be truthful, when I first just started working at Fairhavens, I think that was God using me. At the time, Don worked for Firestone, and they'd go on to these strikes, which would be kind of hard to live through. So I thought, well, maybe I'll get a job. I was just at home with the kids. And that time it was just Donnie and Jenny. And so I thought, well, maybe I could work at the Fairhavens Christian Home, because I had volunteered there a couple times with the church, the South Shores Christian Church. And but to be truthful, I kind of was a little nervous about being around older people. But I got the job as a CNA right off the bat, and I started working, and I thought, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Well, at the time, they had, it was like a scholarship program, and they paid for me to go to get the CNA class. And then they gave, I think it was like a $200 bonus or something, which I had to stay there at least 3 months or I'd have to pay it back. So that kind of kept me there for 3 months because it was kind of a hard job. And I thought, I don't know if I can do this. But the longer I stayed there, the closer it got to my heart. And at the end of the 3 months, I was fine, and I felt like I was where I needed to be. And so I feel like God kind of led me there. And especially when I got into the activity department, every day it felt like there was, even on a day that wasn't the greatest, there was always something I could think back on or do that maybe could just comfort a resident, or, maybe just read him a scripture. It just felt like God led me there, and I was where I should be. And I do love elderly people still. Actually, I'm one of them now. When Don got sick, I think it wasn't a door I liked, but he was with us. God was with us. And I'm glad I was with Don. I didn't want to do this. It was really hard when we found out that Don was sick. And so that was the door that I didn't really want to walk through. But I'm glad I was there because I felt like I belonged there with him through this. And we were able to make it through it and make it. I feel like I made, together we were able to face it together. And God was with us through the whole thing. So I don't know what else to say. Yeah, he was a wit guy, first grade on. Now, to be truthful, and he came to our church. He had a different lifestyle than me, but growing up, honestly, he was kind of ornery. I mean, I don't know if you would believe that about Don. Not ornery like in a mean way, but just, teasing and getting in trouble at school and things such as that. But anyway, my mom at first, it was like when he got home from Vietnam, that was when we just started dating then. Of course, we graduated together and everything in our class of 20. And but Mother's like, oh, Don Reynolds? But he kind of grew on him, and then she made him an apple pie every time we came. So they came to love him a lot. It's very hard. It's hard. It has taught me that there's a lot of people that really care. And that has helped a lot. Sometimes it's taught me to put a big smile on my face and act like everything's okay when it's not. But you just do it because, it's kind of lonesome, I have to admit. I mean, I got my family, and they're good. But it's just, we did a lot of stuff together. So now it's real hard to go eat somewhere. Sunday was always church, and then we go out to eat. So things have kind of changed, and I still do church, but it's like, okay, church is over now. I guess I'm going home. But I'm getting there. It's just your whole life kind of changes. Everything changes. There's not hardly any part of your life that doesn't change. But God's there. He's getting me through it. And all my friends and family. So we'll make it. And there were many times through the years, we were married 50 years, so you'd have times that, like, there'd be a strike and it'd be hard, but God always provided. Things, just like any married couple, it's just you think, how are we going to get through this? But we did. And so, yeah, he's always provided. My parents passed away, those times. My sister, really hard times like that. And I don't know how anybody would get through anything like that without God in your life. It's just, like I said, I grew up, God was just part of my life. And it's not like I was perfect. I mean, come just like any kid. I always went to church, though. I always obeyed my parents, even though there were times I'd think, oh, I don't want to tonight. But I always did. But, I will say this. I think the one thing that I am very thankful for is that I was raised that I had a Christian family. I was raised by a Christian family. And even though sometimes, like, even my own kids, sometimes they don't always, go to church and things like I want, but the seed is still there. So it still works, I believe. Well, he really had a lot of work to do. Well, I think he still teaches me sometimes, because right now I'm at this place that I'm not for sure what my role is anymore. And so God is there trying to teach me, and I think that, well, I know that he has a plan for me, and I'm not for sure what it is at this at this point in my life, but I know that there's things that I enjoy doing, and so I think that sometimes I'm not for sure what he wants me to do, but I have a feeling that there's some ministry that he wants me to really be involved in. I mean, I was involved in the music ministry for a long time, so that was sort of that, and then the Fairhaven ministry, and so now it's like, okay. But I am finally admitted that I am old enough for Spice of Lifers, and so I'm involved in Spice of Lifers and working with Dennis in that committee. And I'm working with the personal growth ministry with Jan, and I think that's where I'm feeling like those are areas that I like, maybe that God is leading me to work with. Well, I lately I've been following Read the Bible in a Year. I read that. Sometimes I get behind and have to do a lot of reading, but I do that. I have a devotional every day. That's how I do, and then just, my personal prayer life. I tend to ramble, but I hope God understands. Prayer, sometimes it's hard. And I'll be truthful, there are sometimes I don't quite, I wish there was a way that God could say to me, Sharon, I want you to do this, verbally, because I kind of struggle in that area, thinking, is this what God wants me to do? I read the Bible and I find all the scriptures, so I think, but that part, and I'm not perfect, believe me. There are days that I don't even get my devotion done, so I try to catch up then. I like the Psalms. I like to read about Esther. I mean, I'm always thinking, wow, the women of the Bible amaze me. I like James. That's one of the Bible I like. And I do like the verses like, of course, cast all your cares upon him. I'll be with you, you know, knowing that he's with me always. Run with perseverance. I read that this morning. I thought, okay, got to go run with perseverance and do this interview. I hope God puts the right words in my mouth. Well, he's still working on me. I suppose he will be till the very end. Just keep on. Keep, like I said, keep going. Even, you know, I don't know if this is normal or not, but, you know, you just get down, you think, you know, God keeps you going, and just don't give up. He hasn't given up on me yet. Well, you asked me to. I mean, I'm not any famous person or anything, but just letting people know that, yes, God is there. He loves us, and even when we sometimes mess up a little bit, he still loves us, and we just have to keep on, keep running with perseverance, like that says in is it Hebrews? And then just that you can keep going, even at my age, which, I mean, I'm getting up there. It's a little older every day. But God has a plan, and as long as I'm here, he's still got a plan for me, and whatever he wants me to do, if he makes it clear, I'm willing to try.